Hi, and welcome to the McGregor Dementia Support Ministry Podcast, a podcast providing relevant resources to those currently walking the dementia journey with their loved ones. Today's podcast is a session recorded from our Alzheimer's and Dementia Seminar held here at McGregor Baptist Church on February 22nd, 2025. Today's podcast is entitled Finding Care Solutions by Cynthia Hipp Perthuis, an Elder Care Strategist.
What we're going to talk about today is what are some options? And I want you to know that our job, the job that my company does, is we want to make sure we are empathetic and that we always remember, except for the next 16 minutes, that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we want to listen to you twice as much as we talk to you, because we can't help you if we are not listening to you and understanding what your specific problem is or your specific challenge. And we help people find places to live all over the country. We help people understand what's going on with this disease. And let me tell you how I got here. I got here because my father died with Alzheimer's and my grandmother died with old-timers. My great-grandmother died with senility. They're all the same thing, and there was a massive stigma around those diseases, and we used to run and hide from my great-grandmother because she was crazy and she smelled. And that isn't really what was going on. She had a disease that people just didn't talk about in the 60s. And my goal is for people to talk about this in a caring and loving manner. I also have an APOE4 gene, which gives me a little bit higher chance than the general public of getting this disease. So I watch out for it every day, I educate every day, and I help people every day with this disease. It is my passion, and it is what I do. So we want to think about not only what is best for your loved one during this disease when they're coming towards the end or they're declining faster, but what also is good for the entire family unit. I have people who come to me every day, all the time, and I've heard it out here at my table. My mother wants to stay at home. My father will never go anywhere. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story about my father. My mother called us in 2008 and told us that he had Alzheimer's. We didn't really understand what it was. And she didn't tell us that she also had Parkinson's. She died in 2010, and my father didn't die until 2015. And once my mother died, he told us, "I will kill myself if you put me in a home." And I want you to know that what we do for a living is we don't put anyone anywhere, and we don't put them in a home. We try to keep them out of the home, if you will, but we help them find, and the family find, a place that is a good place for them to be. And when my father would say that on a regular basis to us, my sister and I shook in our boots until the day or the night or the morning, whatever you want to call it, at 3 a.m., that I got a call in New York City from the police in Dallas, Texas, and they said, "We have your father, and he's in his pajamas with the dog on the very busy road going to the grocery store." And I called my sister and I said, "Remind me how he told us he would die." And she said, "He didn't tell us how he was going to die and kill himself." And I said, "Then we're done. We can't do this any longer." And we moved him to a community where he lived a lovely life for 3 years before he passed away. When I went to visit him, the first time that I visited him in this new community where he lived, he wanted to take me around and show me the hotel that his wife, my mother, and he had purchased. And he said, "Look at this beautiful hotel. There are a lot of rooms, and there's room for you. Not today, it's full, but someday there will be a room for you to be here." Now, I'm hoping he wasn't projecting that that's where I would live someday, but that was the way he thought of this great place that he lived. And my most joyful times with my father during his disease was when I would go to that beautiful location and visit with him and know that he was well cared for, that his incontinence was taken care of, and I wasn't the rear admiral. I love that statement. And that I could just spend some time with him watching Cupcake Wars, or talking about the time that he went to Madagascar with Anthony Bourdain, and he ate crickets in chocolate, and that it was really hot, and the people kind of spoke a different language, but he really enjoyed it. My father never went to Madagascar, ever. But in his mind, he did, and he loved being there, and I loved being with him there. I didn't have to worry about the phone call coming at 3 a.m. I didn't have to worry about him walking out into the middle of the street and getting hit. I didn't have to worry about him driving a car and hitting some young child going to school. I didn't have to worry about, had he eaten? Was he taking his medication? Was he clean? And so while we never planned in our family for him to be in a home, in the end, he was never in a home. He was in a place that loved and cared for him. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, about what are the options. So you're not going to be able to probably to see this, but we're going to talk about it, and it's on this sheet. We're going to talk about what's the first thing. What is status quo? Status quo is where you live now. And so are there some things that you need to think about? There are advantages and disadvantages to everything in life. There is a disadvantage to me being here today because my husband is at a lacrosse game. Now, for me, it's an advantage I'm here. For him, that's a disadvantage that I'm here. But we have to give and take in everything that we do in life. And we have to kind of change what we think we're going to be able to do. I think, because I was a gymnast in high school, that I can do a cartwheel. I have tried it on the beach a few years ago. And when I tried it on the beach, I looked around and said, well, nobody's here to see me do a cartwheel. This will be a great time to prove I can do a cartwheel. And as I put my hands on the sand and almost buckled under the weight of my body, I realized there was no one on the beach who was there to help me when I fell. Those are things that I would have told you that I would always be able to do a cartwheel. I stand here at 65 and I tell you I will always be able to prepare a meal. I will always be able to care for myself. I will always be socially engaged. I will always be standing at this podium at McGregor Baptist Church every year. I will tell you those are the things that I believe, but those are not necessarily going to be true. And they're especially not going to be true if I decline for a number of different reasons. It might be Alzheimer's. It might be kidney, it might be heart. There's something happening because we're all going to decline. Every one of us. We're not going to live forever on this earth. So sometimes at home, it can be less expensive if you're at home. You feel like you're not spending as much money. And you feel like you are answering the questions and doing the things that your loved one has always wanted, that they wanted to be at home. But with this disease, eventually it will require 24/7 care. And none of us have been trained to spend 24/7 caring for someone else. We were trained as nurses and we were trained to give a 4 or 6 hour shift, but not 24/7. So it can be really overwhelming, and the expense can be overwhelming to stay at home when you need 24/7 care. It could be anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a month. And you may need to make some changes to your construction, and you may need to try to duplicate programming. We've heard today that one of the things that can help us is socialization. It's hard to get socialization when your loved one is at home with you and with a caregiver. It's really hard to be able to duplicate that. So let's go to the next thing we hear about, independent living. This is a word you may have heard. This is traditionally an unlicensed, if you will, senior housing. It's for residents that are 55 plus. Pretty much everybody in Florida that lives in a gated community lives in independent living. Or in a condo building, you live in independent living. I come from New York City, from Manhattan, and we say that everybody in Manhattan lives in independent living. We live in a big building, we bring our food in, we have an Uber there, and there's a doorman to zip our zipper if we cannot reach it. But independent living is not for someone who has memory care issues. There's no formalized care. It's less programming, less dining. In all caps, I write, it is not appropriate for anyone with a dementia disease diagnosis, because you go to independent, you may eventually have to move someplace else. If you're going to move to independent living and you have a diagnosis, stay home. Get the same care at home. Again, my opinion, but you can take it for what it's worth. The next step is assisted living. Now, assisted living are licensed communities where seniors who need help with their what are called ADLs, activities of daily living, they can get that care, and they can get it in the moment that around the time they need it. They're not hiring someone to come to their home for a 6-hour minimum, an 8-hour minimum. If they need somebody for 15 minutes to come and help them put their clothes on, or to help them take a shower, or to help them get ready for bed, they can do that. And the pricing on assisted living is based on two things: a rent price and a care price. And when you go early to assisted living, you may only be paying the rent care, or a small care, the rent price, and a small care price on top of that. As you stay, that number can increase on the care. Assisted living is what is termed a social model as opposed to a hospital model. The hospital model is the home that none of us want to live in. That's a hospital model. Nursing homes or skilled nursing. But in an assisted living, it's social. I'm not a cruiser. A lot of people in Florida are. But they call assisted living a cruise ship on land. There are a lot of activities. There's ice carving like you have on a cruise ship. I have been on a cruise. There are book clubs. There are things that happen. There are field trips. They take people to go do things. Lots of cultural events, curated dining. They also provide medication management, housekeeping, health aides. Some nurses are there. And all of the staff need a background check and full clearance, and the cost can be dramatically different from 24/7 care in your home. 24/7 care, we talked about it earlier, status quo. $10,000 to $25,000 a month is what it could cost you to care for someone with a diagnosis of dementia. In assisted living, the cost can be between $4,000 and $8,000 a month. Now, I like for my clients who have some type of a diagnosis or think that they're concerned about the future to go to assisted living because it's less expensive, you'll see on our next slide, than memory care. Memory care's cost can be between $6,000 and $10,000 a month. But if you go to assisted and you have a partner, for example, a spouse, a loved one, a boyfriend, girlfriend, you can live there. Even if you have dementia, you can live in assisted living until it gets so bad that you're an elopement or a wander risk. Until then, you can live in assisted living. They work with you there. And these residents may need help with functioning, or they may be, we've already moved to memory care. Yeah, memory care. They may need help, but they're an elopement risk. Traditionally, you go to memory care when you're concerned about wandering or when you need much more care and you're more than pleasantly confused. You're much more losing of what your place and your time is and what you need to be doing at that moment. Maybe you've got your nights and days mixed up. They have many safety modifications in memory care, including at times they may have you wear a bracelet just in case. We think that these places are safe. I had a client who broke a window and got out of memory care. Now, they found him really quickly, but I just want to tell you, it's never 100%. Many of them are secured, and again, that cost can be between $6,000 and $10,000. Let's talk very briefly about a CCRC. Once again, a CCRC is not appropriate for people with a dementia disease diagnosis. You might not even be able to get into a CCRC with that because they're going to interview you based on your finances and on your medical history. So people will think, I only have $500,000 left to my name. I'll go to a CCRC and they will keep me even if I run out of money. They're not going to let you in if you are have a chance of running out of money. They're not going to let you in if you have a chronic diagnosis. So take the CCRC off your list for that reason. There are other reasons to go there and other times to go there. Let's think about residential care homes. I have a feeling, has anybody ever heard of a residential care home? Raise your hand. A few of you have heard of those. Those are homes that are in residential settings. They take 10 or less people. They have more attention. Sometimes people say, I don't want to do that. That just seems kind of like a group home. It's a beautiful, lovely place. It can be good and it can be bad. I had a child that was in private school. It was a tiny private school. There weren't enough people for her to go through and make mad as she turned into a teenager. It was too small. The same thing can happen in a residential care home. It can be too small. You may not have the ability to find your people. But it also can be good being small because of the fact that you have more attention to your care. And the pricing can range between 3 and 8. So you see, that's a lot different from 6 to 10 that we see at a formalized memory care. Skilled nursing is the last stop on the train, and that last stop on the train is a medical model. Traditionally, it's a shared room in a hospital bed with the beepers and the nurses that are there. And that's the home that we all try to keep our loved ones out of. It's the place we promised the loved ones that we would never put them. And that price can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month. We encourage clients to move to an assisted living or a memory care before they would have to go to a skilled nursing. You can die in your memory care or your assisted living home if you are not on a feeding tube or a tracheotomy, and if you're able to actually get out of the bed with one person helping you. If you progress too far, you don't have a lot of choices because you will end at a skilled nursing or you can stay at home. You want to make sure that you have done all of your research. I believe in the where, the when, and the how. Do not wait until you need to be someplace. You need to figure out where you would go if they tell you that you need to go. And I want to make sure that you're thinking about all of your family members. You don't want to wake up in the middle of the night from the police. You don't want to worry about your loved one. You want them to be cared for. Know that it will not be a private nurse sitting by the bed in memory care 24/7, and that you may still have to manage some trials and tribulations. And there, as I always say, there will be trouble in the playground.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and leave a review if you found this content helpful.